Welcome into the Logan Ward Show here on 12 Ounce Sports. Glad to have y'all in here on a Wednesday. Audio might be a little weird. Don't know where I put my headphones at. So audio might be a little weird today, but we're going to get into a lot of sports talk today. Excited to have y'all in here on a Wednesday afternoon. I guess Wednesday morning, excuse me. It's interesting. We have a lot of sports to get into, and it's crazy that even during a pandemic, during a time where we don't have anybody, we don't have sports, it's crazy that we're in a situation that we still have all of these sports topics. The fact that we have these sports topics is, number one, great. It's fantastic. I love the fact that we're still getting topics, we're still getting things, and it just goes to show how big sports are in our society and in American culture, how big it is. It really is. And to me, it's pretty crazy that that's the case. Because if you think about it, and I know a lot of people do, we're talking about playing a child's game. We're talking about grown men playing a child's game for millions of dollars. And I heard yesterday, listening to the radio, it wasn't that long ago that Major League Baseball didn't have $1 million player. That there was not a player making $1 million in Major League Baseball. And that first changed with Nolan Ryan. So it wasn't that long ago that we were in this, and now people are making $35, $36, $37 million in the MLB. You have quarterbacks making $35 million for 5 years, over 5 years. You have NBA players who are signing $200 million contracts. It's just kind of crazy to me what has kind of happened with sports and how deeply ingrained it is in our culture. And we still have topics. We still have things to talk about here when it comes to sports. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Logan Ward Show. You can also follow me personally at Logan B. Ward, and also check out 12 Ounce Sports. Let me start with this. So we plan, right? That's what we do as people. We plan for our next job. We plan for 5 years from now, what we want our lives to look like in 5 years. We plan for what we want our goals to be for this year. I have my plans for what I want this show to look like, what I want this brand to look like. I have my plans, and I have my goals, and I have what I want to do. So we all have plans in our life, right? You do at work or personally, you want to buy a house by the end of the year. Whatever that may be, we have plans. And very rarely do people go into things blind or without a plan. And Bill Belichick has a plan with what he's going to do. He has a plan. I've said it before, he either knows Jarrett Stidham's the real deal or he knows that he's not. And he's rolling with him no matter what. Because he has a plan. Bill Belichick is the guy who planned, he practiced a play that he saw the Seahawks do. He practiced with Malcolm Butler, hey, this is what you need to do in this situation. He planned that. He planned for that. And it happened. He put his player in the exact right position that he needed to, and it happened. Bill Belichick is a guy that says, okay, we play Baltimore in September, October. We know we're going to see them later on. We know we're going to see them later on in the season, probably in the postseason. So let me hold back on some of the things that I think can work against them. We always see that with the Patriots. September, not a great month. The beginning of October, not a great month. It's just Bill Belichick gathering data, planning ahead, planning for the future. Oh, I know we're going to see Baltimore. So let's not hold let's not give them everything that we have. Let's not show them all the cards. Let's pick up on things that they're doing. Let's see what they're trying to do in their game plan so that we can plan for it later on. Bill Belichick is a planner. Bill Belichick absolutely has a plan, and that plan is Trevor Lawrence. You can't tell me that he's not eyeing Trevor Lawrence. If Jarrett Stidham's not the real deal, if he knows Jarrett Stidham's not the real deal, and there have been some talkings that, hey, maybe Brian Hoyer's going to start. I don't think that that's the case. But we've heard those rumors. So if Jarrett Stidham's not the real deal, if Jarrett Stidham's not the heir to Tom Brady, Bill Belichick is perfectly set up to get a top draft pick. You're going to throw Jarrett Stidham into the fire with no weapons. These are the same weapons that Tom Brady had last year. Mohamed Sanu, Nicole Harry, 33-year-old Julian Edelman who's coming off an injury. These are the same weapons that Tom Brady had last year. You're going to give them to Jarrett Stidham. That's a bottom 5 weapons. He has bottom 5 weapons. So Jarrett Stidham's going to be thrown to a fire. In a division that has gotten better this offseason. Miami's gotten Tua. They've gotten many draft picks that they play. And quite frankly, they played really well last year. They played really hard. They have the right coach in Brian Flores. So you have the Miami Dolphins who have gotten better. I think that the Jets are going to figure this out. They had a run at the end of the season. Sam Darnold played well. He got mono for a month, but anything after that, he played pretty well last season. I think defensively they have some playmakers. Offensively they have playmakers. They don't have a true great wide receiver and a kind of okay offensive line, but I think that they'll be better. And the Bills have the best roster in the division. And they added Stephon Diggs. So in a tougher division, Bill Belichick's going to throw Jarrett Stidham into the fire. They don't have many weapons. Or they're very young and they're going to give them a lot of playing time, N'Keal Harry. This is going to be a learning year for a lot of players. A lot of young players. They're going to get reps this year. Not only that, but the New England Patriots have a brutal schedule. It's the toughest schedule in the league. Toughest schedule in the league. They have to go to Kansas City. They have to play Baltimore and San Francisco. They have to play both LA teams back-to-back, Chargers then Rams. Both teams have significantly better rosters, I think, than the Patriots. And they have to play Denver, a team that I think most people are high on this year. That's a brutal schedule at Kansas City. You have to play Baltimore. You have to play the 49ers, the Chargers, the Rams, Denver, plus your division that is significantly better. I don't see a lot of wins on the schedule for the Patriots this year. But this is exactly what Bill Belichick wanted. Bill Belichick said, you know what, Tom, you can walk. It's fine. It's time for us to rebuild. It's going to take us a year to rebuild anyway. It just so happens they have the toughest schedule in the league. And now you're in the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. You're in the Justin Fields sweepstakes. You can go get a quarterback in the first round if you wanted to next year. And then, just like Kansas City has done, just like all these teams that are trying to build around a young quarterback, Cleveland's done, Kansas City's done, build around the young quarterback who's on his rookie contract, bring in some offseason people next year. Next year, you can bring in some defensive weapons, you can draft a quarterback, and you're ready to go again. And you're ready to dominate the AFC East for the next decade. Bill Belichick has a plan. He always has. Always has had a plan. And this is no different. Bill Belichick wants to be in on the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. let me switch to this. So, the NBA's coming back. The report is they're coming back in late July. Sources have said the proposed end date of the NBA Finals is October 12th. They're throwing out everything. They've thrown out 16 teams. They've thrown out 22 teams. They turned out a FIFA World Cup style playoff, which I would love, but don't think it's going to happen. They've thrown out everything. And some people are asking for 30 teams. All 30 teams need to come back. Why? We're in a pandemic still. I know that people's minds are kind of on a different thing. They're on the protest. They're on the death of George Floyd. I understand that. That doesn't mean that the pandemic has gone away. That doesn't mean that the coronavirus is gone. We're going to see a significant spike in coronavirus cases because of the protest. Why not mitigate the risk? You have players. You have NBA players that are trying not to get involved in the protest so that they can go play basketball because they know that this is a cesspool that could be possibly infected. But why have 30 teams, all 30 teams go back to the NBA and back into the regular season? It doesn't make sense to me. It's just mitigating risk. If there's no need for it, and there's not, why have it? Go straight to the playoffs. I wouldn't even have regular season games. Just go straight to the playoffs. If you wanted to have scrimmages, if you wanted to have your 16 teams there and they play some scrimmage and you say, okay, Lakers, Clippers, we're going to play a scrimmage or whatever it may be so that they can try to get into 5-on-5 shape, that's fine with me. I think they could do that within their team, but still, if you wanted to have some scrimmage, that's fine, but I don't think we need to have regular season games, and we for sure don't need 30 teams. We don't need every NBA team to play in this thing. Not all these NBA teams are compelling. I don't care about the Atlanta Hawks. Yeah, Trae Young's fun. I don't care. I want to see Giannis, LeBron, Kawhi Leonard. I want to see the Celtics. I want to see the Raptors and the Rockets. Those are the teams that I want to see. I don't want to see these bottom line teams trying to work their way into the playoffs, or even come back for 5 games. I think that's it's stupid. It's reckless. There's no need for it. So why do it? I've seen things about small market teams. I'm not worried about those small market teams right now. Small market teams not getting an advantage. Milwaukee's going to be in this. Are you going to have your LA teams? Yeah, absolutely. But Milwaukee's going to be in it. Toronto, I know, is not a small market, but it's not in the country. It's not in the U.S., so it's a smaller market in the U.S. than what others may be. Milwaukee's not a big market. LA is, yeah. Boston is, okay. But you have Milwaukee, and I'm not worried about small market teams right now. I'm worried about revenue. I'm worried about TV revenue. I'm trying to get any type of revenue that we can, revenue stream in here as like we can. Right now, that's what I'm worried about if I'm the NBA. I'm not worried about small market teams having a disadvantage because they're not going to be able to play in front of the crowd. I'm not worried about that right now. So I hope that we don't have 30 teams. I hope that that's not the case. But I guess only time will tell if we do have that. And take a break. When we come back, we'll get into some of the news and highlights around the sports world. Lots still going on. Like I said, there's still a ton of different. There's still a ton of sports news going on around the world. So we'll get to that coming up next here on the Logan Ward Show. Are you looking for a new sports book that provides the easiest deposits, the fastest payouts, and the best customer service? Well, then look no further than MyBookie. MyBookie strives to deliver on providing a creative, always expanding selection of sports odds for players at all levels. As a MyBookie player, you'll get the industry's most rewarding loyalty program with payout requests processed in just 48 hours. There's hundreds of casino games and great bonuses on every deposit. You can join MyBookie today for a 50% sign-up bonus up to $1,000 using the promo code 12OunceSports. We'll be right back.
For the marching exercise, you want to sit down in the center front of your chair, bring your feet shoulder width apart, and form a 90-degree angle with your knees. From here, you're going to lift one foot and raise the opposite arm just as you march in place in your chair. Make sure you keep that core nice and tight and you breathe into it, and also maintain good posture with a straight back.
DrinkAid, ready for distribution worldwide.
That's what's needed to get to that next level. I'm Rob Pennell, and I'm going to teach you how to be an offensive machine.
Nothing makes us happier at Lexington Law than when our clients cancel our services. Listen to this client call and see what we mean.
Lexington Law Firm, this is Erin.
I would like to cancel my account.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, don't be. Actually, you guys have done tremendous work for me, and I was working with you for several years now. And my goal was to get a mortgage written by the end of this year, and I just got that mortgage commitment.
That is wonderful.
My credit went from like 440 working with you guys to 700.
Nice.
And I got a very good 4.25% 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I have nothing at all bad to say. If you ever want me to write a testimonial, well, I will. As a matter of fact, I've recommended you to a lot of friends.
Lexington Law has served over 500,000 clients, taking expert action on their credit that has led to the removal of millions of questionable negative items from their credit reports. Call now and learn more about how Lexington Law may be able to help you in the removal of negative items from your credit report, such as collections, late payments, charge-offs, and many others. Call Lexington Law today.
I haven't gotten a haircut since January. Look at this mess. Look at this mess. I don't know what this is. It's just a mop on top of my head right now. Haven't had a haircut since January. This is ridiculous. Hope y'all having a fantastic morning. This has been a long week. I had to go back to work this week. So it's been a little longer. Been tired. It's crazy when you're at home. You become accustomed to a lifestyle, and that lifestyle's being a little. It's changing a little bit right now. I can't just sit and watch Netflix while I work. I have to, just sit there. I mean, it's been really hard. It's been really hard to have to go into work, and I know I'm fortunate, and I know that I'm privileged, that I have a job. But man, it's been an adjustment for sure. So, if I'm a little tired, if I look a little bad, if you're like, man, Logan, you're looking terrible this week, that's because, well, it's probably true, but that's because I'm sitting here trying to wake up as we speak. Let's get into some sports headlines around the sports world. Let's get into what happened.
Start right out. Hey, what happened?
Missed last night's action? Don't worry. We got you covered.
He throws it across the field to Dyson. He's got something. 30, he's got 40, something. 50. He's got it. 40. He's got it. 20. 10. He's got it. End zone. Touchdown, Titans. What happened?
There's been a lot that's going on, a lot that's happening still. It has slowed down a little bit in the last couple of days. The sports world has taken a step back, one, to the pandemic, two, to the protest. And so athletics, sports, leagues, they've all kind of taken a step back to this right now, which I think is fantastic, which I think is the right thing to do. So most of the top headlines are regarding either coronavirus or regarding the protests or who said what. So it's a hard time right now for sportscasters to find material. We're still trying to learn more about what's going to happen with the NBA, what's happening with Major League Baseball, and I'll get into Major League Baseball here in just a little bit. But so here's some of the headlines. Sources said that the proposed end of finals, the last possible game, a Game 7 of the NBA Finals, would be October 12th. Now, I've said this before, that with the NBA Finals, we're going to have to figure out the NBA is going to have to compete against the NFL no matter what. And that's why I think if you do a 16-team playoff and you do not based off of conferences, but just based off of seeds where you do have the possibility of a Lakers-Clippers finals, I think that would be the ideal thing. Because if you're going up against the NBA or if you're going up against the NFL, it's not going to be as pretty as you want. I think the NBA Finals last year had roughly 15 million people that watched. The NFL, from every single network that carried the NFL, which is Fox, CBS, NBC, they all had better numbers than that. They all had better numbers, every single one of those networks. So I think that's a real concern for the NBA. I understand that the NBA probably can't be worried just about that at this moment. I think the NBA has to worry about a lot of different things, and that's not really one that you just have to absolutely worry about. But it is interesting, and it's an interesting thing to kind of think about of them having to compete with the NBA or the NFL, but that October 12th date is the last possible date, so that would be Game 7 of the NBA Finals would be October 12th. That's as long as they'll go. That's as late as they'll go with that. So, there's a lot there's still a lot of this. There's still a lot to talk about. Still a lot of that going on. So we'll see what happens. The NBA is all in that matter, talking about what they're going to do, how this is going to work out, who's going to be there, what teams are going to be playing. I saw today, I read right before we got on the air, talking about what advantages do teams get, because you're not getting a home court advantage this year. What advantages are you trying to get? Some people are talking about, okay, maybe an extra possession. Some have suggested, I think there's been suggestions of the teams get to pick where they stay, what hotel they stay at, where the team's going to be located at. So a lot of different things there's still a lot of moving parts, and we're looking, I think, at late July to start the NBA season. And when you go from March to July of no basketball, it's going to be an adjustment. I think we're going to see some sloppy basketball when it starts to come back. We will. But we'll see what happens. Here's the NBA. Here's the other headline: is that the NBA's top seeded teams are looking at long shots, alternatives to home court, since they can't get home court. Some of the things they're trying to do are the higher seeded team being awarded the first possession of the second, third, and fourth quarter, following the traditional jump ball at the beginning of the game. The higher seed team being allowed to designate one player to be able to be whistled for 7 fouls instead of 6 before fouling out. The higher seeded team receiving an extra coach's challenge. The hotel, teams being able to transport their actual hardwood. That's ridiculous. Off-court featured in which playoff teams and ordered from 1 to 16 receive first choice of picking which hotel they will stay at the ESPN Worldwide of Sports Complex and Disney World Resorts. So we'll see what happens. So, and again, this is the quote. Here's a quote that says, "I don't think that the NBA cares about it. I don't think it's a top priority for them." That's an Eastern Conference executive told ESPN when asked about making up for home court advantage. And I agree. I don't think the NBA is worried about that right now. I don't think they're trying to get in plans to actually play games, and they're not worried about home court advantage at this point in time. So will that change? Possibly. Will it not? That's also another possibility. But it is something to look out for in the future. I'm going to play the interview. We had Tim Britton on, who covers the New York Mets for The Athletic. We had him on I guess it's been about a month ago. But we talked about Major League Baseball and what a season could look like, what the Mets season could look like. We talked a lot about a lot of different things with it, and I think it's a good time because the MLB is proposing another. The MLB has proposed another thing. The owners want less games, players want more games, and we'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. But I wanted to play that interview with Tim Britton because I think it's important to listen to and to hear really what writers are thinking about and what they are trying to the MLB is trying to get as many games as possible. They're trying to get this revenue. I know owners don't want as many games, players do. So let's bring on this interview with Tim Britton of The Athletic. Let's bring on Tim Britton. He is the New York Mets beat writer for The Athletic. Tim, how are you?
Pretty good, Logan. What's going on?
I wanted to ask, what are you doing during this time of quarantine? What are you specifically doing right now?
I'm just walking around my apartment, and there's been a lot of that lately. I live in Queens, where obviously there's a lot going on here. But since I've gotten back from spring training, basically the week baseball shut down, it's been very similar to an off-season feel for me. In the off-season, it's a lot of calling people from home, working on your stories from home, coming up with different ideas when maybe not a lot is going on with your team, depending on who you cover. And so a lot of it has been that still. So I think when the weather started to get nice here in New York, it sort of started to feel like I'm missing baseball a little bit, like we should be there, but it just kind of feels like a really extended off season for me right now.
Can you kind of give my audience a feel of what New York is like right now?
Well, it's kind of hard to say because I'm inside most of the time.
Right.
I live in an apartment. Our windows face an interior courtyard. It's not like we're out looking out on the street. I go out with my fiance for walks or runs most days. And the streets are a little emptier than usual, but not barren by any sense of the imagination. You see people going around with masks a lot more frequently now than you did maybe even a week ago. It started to turn in that regard. But fortunately, we've been kind of insulated from it. We've been able to, both of us can work from home reasonably well, and we've got enough space in our apartment that we haven't driven each other crazy yet.
Yeah, that's the key. I've been with my wife. She's a teacher, and they had spring break before this all happened, so she's been home for 5 weeks now, and she's going stir crazy.
Yeah. It's depending on kind of what you're able to do for your job and how used to being home you are, it's kind of different for different people.
So let's switch to the MLB. What are the chances? What are the likelihood? Do you think they're actually going to play the season in Arizona with the proposed or talked about situation that they've kind of discussed? What are the chances that happens?
I think they're minimal. There's just so many obstacles and so many kind of assumptions made within that plan. The biggest one to me is just the idea that we're going to have enough tests for Major League Baseball players to be tested on a regular basis. And you're not talking about just a handful of people here. The major leagues have 780 players on a given day. That's 26 times 30. And if they're talking about significantly expanded rosters, that's adding 100, 200 more players to that. When I first read the idea about the NBA doing this in Las Vegas for the playoffs, you're thinking, okay, that's 16 teams times 12 players. That's not nearly the number of guys you're going to have for a Major League Baseball season, and it's not the time period you're doing it for. Basketball playoffs you could do in a month to 6 weeks. The baseball season, you're talking about, maybe 3-4 months of this. It just seems like there's a lot of obstacles. They kind of shrugged off the idea like, oh, if a player tests positive, we'll be able to just still go on. And we haven't seen any proof of that yet. You see what's going on in leagues in Asia. Japan, there was one team that had, I think, 3 players test positive, and they had to push back when they wanted to start the league. And they hadn't started yet. They were going to start in 3 weeks or so. 3 guys test positive on a team, and they have to push that back because the team has to quarantine. So I just think there's too many obstacles to imagine that coming together the way it's been proposed right now, which is, starting in late May or something like that, and having 30 teams in one city. I think that's probably too much to overcome. I do still think there's a chance of a season, but I don't really know what form it might take.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same way with the whole Arizona. Number one, just getting that many people in the same room or the same vicinity is crazy. But you also think about local TV deals. Do TV cameras come out, and do they have their own film crews? What kind of revenue does it bring in? Because that's kind of, I think, one of the reasons baseball wants to get going is because of revenue. Could I make the argument, though, that this is the perfect time? Look, I've said it multiple times. I think the Major League Baseball season's way too long. 162 games, crazy. The NBA season's way too long now. We live in a different world than what we did 30 years ago, where people sat and watched TV for 3.5 hours, a baseball game every day. Could I make the argument that this is a great time for the MLB to kind of tinker with a shortening schedule? And I think it might bring out some more fans because there's not as many games.
Well, we've heard the idea of baseball considering shortening the season a little bit. But I think a lot of that talk is going from 162 to 154, which is probably a negligible difference for a lot of people. And I agree with you on the NBA. Like, you hear, oh, maybe they'll go from 82 to 76. Like, you should go to 50.
Right.
So I think it will be interesting to see for every sport, if there is a shortened or condensed season, what fan reaction is like to that. If baseball has a kind of 2 or 3 month sprint and then maybe an expanded playoff or something like that, how do fans feel about maybe unbalanced schedules, teams that they don't think deserve to be in the playoffs getting there? I think the interesting thing about baseball, like when and I don't follow basketball nearly as closely, it seems like in basketball you get to a certain point in the season and you know which teams are going to make the playoffs with like half the season to go. Whereas in baseball, you look just last season, the team that won the World Series was way out of it even in June, halfway through the season almost, in Washington. So you get kind of that happening on a more regular basis in baseball because the season is so long. That teams make comebacks in September and that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how fans react if there is a shorter season. Do they feel like it's as legitimate a champion as it would be otherwise? Or do they like that it's, every game matters? You don't have those Tuesday night games in May where there's 15,000 people in the stands and 2/5 starters going against each other without a lot on the line. Is every game more meaningful because it's a shorter season?
Yeah, I also wonder about fan engagement and the amount of fans that go to a stadium. We've seen the number of people actually going to stadiums dwindle in the last couple of years. Do you think that even if a shortened season, now it's more relevancy? You got to get to the ballpark once a summer, and I think that maybe that would help. Do you think that could help also fan engagement?
We've seen like most stadiums that have been built in the last 20 years have had smaller capacity than the stadiums that preceded them. Part because that was a lot of the previous ones were dual-purpose stadiums. There were football and baseball stadiums. So even like Shea Stadium in Queens here, that fit like 56,000 people, and Citi Field fits 41,000. That's a pretty significant reduction in capacity. I used to cover the Red Sox. Fenway Park was at 33,000 for a while. They've gotten it up to 37, but throughout the 80s and 90s, they were saying, we need a new stadium. We need more people. We need to be able to fit more people, and now it's kind of the perfect size. So I think we've seen, as attendance has gone down a little bit in Major League Baseball, teams are preferring to kind of make their tickets scarce. And another way of doing that, besides reducing capacity of stadiums, is to reduce supply in terms of games. But I think the one problem with that is you have a certain amount of season tickets you want sold, and it's harder to do. It's harder to sell 81 individual season tickets if there's fewer games.
Yeah. How's the Mets organization handling this crisis? What are the Mets doing with their players and the other staff members?
Yeah, I think they're doing pretty much what any team is doing. They're talking about prioritizing health, kind of letting players. They're staying in touch with every player, but telling them, you handle what you need to handle, and you do what you can to stay in shape. I think that's basically what any team is doing at this point. It's a little different for the Mets. They were having a more interesting spring training in the sense that they didn't name their manager until late July, late January, because of all the issues with Carlos Beltran in the offseason, having to move on from him before he even managed a game. So Luis Rojas, the manager now, only took over 2.5 months ago, is missing out on some of that important time, not just to get to know his players, but to get to know how to manage a game more so. That first spring training for a first-time Major League manager, that's an important time to learn with your coaches, learn with your players how to go through a game, and he's missing out on that. We'll see if he gets a shot to do that in more of a condensed spring training. But that's an interesting question to think about if and when we do get back going.
What were your predictions, or if we do have a season, how do you think the Mets play out this year?
Yeah, I think going into spring training, I looked at them as a team kind of in the same vein as they were last year. Last year, they won 86 games, mainly on the strength of a really good second half of the season. They had the second best record in the National League after the All-Star break. I think a game behind the Dodgers. I think this year it probably wouldn't have been as roller coaster a ride, a bad first half, good second half kind of thing. But I thought they would probably get to a similar spot, 86 to 88 wins, right in contention there for a wild card in the National League. I didn't like them as much as I liked the Braves in the NL East. I thought they were probably a little bit behind the Nationals. But then you throw in the injury to Noah Syndergaard and you're missing your number 2 starter all year. That changes it a little bit. That probably lowers my expectations to more like an 83-84 win range. And, of course, that's 162 games that we're not going to have. So I think they're probably just on the fringes of postseason contention, but there's definitely the potential there for them to be a playoff team. I think they've got as good a ceiling as the team's had in a while, although clearly the Syndergaard injury takes that down a bit.
So I just wanted to play a little bit of that interview with Tim Britton. The MLB is proposing a 50-game season, and I was listening to some sports talk radio, some local sports talk radio here in my area, and they said, I'm out on that, don't want 50 games, want more because that's what baseball is. And I think that's the problem with Major League Baseball, is Major League Baseball is this traditionalist, purist sport where people don't want any more. Like, they don't want to adapt. They want more games. They want more. They want more. They need more games. And in this world, I mean, globally, we're getting to the point where we don't want to sit and watch 162 games of baseball. We don't want to watch 82 games of regular season basketball. That's the issue. The NFL and college football are great because you have one game a week. Everyone works for that one game a week. And that's why the ratings are so good. When you have 82 regular seasons in the NBA season, when you have 162 in the MLB, you can miss 8, 9, 10 games in a row. I don't watch Major League Baseball to the playoffs. I don't need to watch these games. There's no reason for me to watch. I can watch the highlights and be done with it. So I think that's a problem with Major League Baseball, and the players don't want to play 50 games. I think 50 games would be perfect I mean, the amount of urgency, I don't want to hear, like, we don't, why is it that we allow baseball to get off to slow starts? Why do we allow great teams in baseball to get off to slow starts? Why are we saying, well, if we have 50 games, they're not going to be able to get off to the slow starts that good teams, it takes a while to get going. Why is that? In the NFL, we always bury the New England Patriots. Always bury the New England Patriots in the first month in September. They're not a very good September team. We bury them. We say they're gone and out. They only have 16 games to turn it around, and they do every year. Good teams should be able to win. Good teams know how to win. I think 50 games is a perfect solution for the MLB. I do. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back on Friday. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. At Logan Ward Show. You can also follow me personally at Logan B. Ward. Do that. Do it now. Grab your phone. Follow. Like us on Facebook. Whatever you do, go do that right now. We'll be back on Friday. This has been the Logan Ward Show on 12 Ounce Sports. Have a great day.